Hello, welcome to another Deck Musings. So, where are we on the standard timeline? So up to here. So we have Worlds in December of 2008. This is what standard looks like. So we have 10th edition as our core set. So this was the last core set which spanned 2 years. After that, for quite a number of years, it was a core set every year, and then eventually they abandoned core sets for a while, and then they came back again, and so on. But yeah, that's where we are at the moment. Then we've got the whole of this rather interesting 2 lots of, you know, 2 mini blocks. So Lorwyn and Morningtide, 2 sets within their own little block, and then Shadowmoor and Eventide, 2 sets within their own little block. But thematically and overall, you know, they're one, to me, they've always been like one thing. So that's what they opted to do for, you know, over the course of basically 4 sets. So you had 4 sets in a block as opposed to 3. Then we've just got Shards of Alara coming from, so the first set of the next block. And if you look at the numbers of the cards in each, you can see, you know, you've got 363 cards in 10th edition. Relatively speaking, when you compare the 2 sets within the mini block, you've got the first set's a larger one, obviously 281, then a smaller set, 150, and then Shadowmoor 281, and then Eventide 180, and then Shards of Alara 229. There's only 3 duplicates across the all the sets that are in standard, and because, you know, everything else rotated out at this point, or the, you know, the previous set and Cold Snap, we see quite a big difference between the sizes of standard between the 2. So we've gone from 2,142 cards in total when you take out the duplicates to 1,481, and then of course it's going to start cranking up again as we move into introduction of Conflux next week, and then Alara Reborn the week after that. And then we have a sort of little bit of a reset, which we'll see in the future in terms of construction rules, and the way that core sets, you know, come in and out of Magic. But we'll get onto that in a month or so's time. So back to here, what do we see? Well, there's just, I mean, obviously there were a lot of different potential archetypes and, you know, decks in terms of the meta for standard at that time, but you can see there's like 4 main ones listed here. Now when we're talking about Worlds in December, you'll see in a moment there was well, certain particular decks that were predominant, but they've got just 4 here listed that were sort of around. So Fairies, Quick and Toast, Kithkins and RB Source. So here's the sort of top 8 breakdown for 2008 World Championships in Memphis. And as you can see here, this was the winning contestant, Antti Malin of Finland. But the deck we're gonna look at is this one by this player here, who I believe was from Estonia. Yeah, first player from Estonia to top 8. Hannes Kerim. And mixed in all, you'll see as well, like with all World Championships, there are a number of different formats mixed in as well. There was Standard, which is what we're looking at. You've got Booster Draft, which was Shards of Alara boosted you off, and also extended. That was still a format at that point, and quite a while after. So here you go. So you can see the top 8 was dominated by fairies decks of one way or another. We're going to look at this one, which is a Kithkins deck. Here's the RB source. There's Quick and Toast. So we've looked at fairies previously, but pre Shards of Alara. And so this is what this deck list looks like. I'll include a link here so you can peruse this at your leisure. And we've got Quick and Toast. And then Kithkins, the deck we're looking at. And then something called RB Source. But you can see a lot of these have, you know, cards from the previous block. Now, this one's got Lightning in it. Yeah, there we go. There was one card I was thinking of which actually got reprinted, having previously been, yeah, Oblivion Ring. So that was actually in the previous block as well as being in the new block, which was interesting with the different artwork. But we'll have a look at that as well. And then outside of the top 8, but undefeated on day 1, was this deck, Teutones, I think it is. But again, you know, if you've been following the episodes recently, and you know the last 4 sets we've been through, you're probably going to recognise a lot of cards from that period. But yeah, look at all the fairies decks, and you know they're all slightly different. And you probably notice as well, we've got Planeswalkers kicking around, both from, it will be Lorwyn, and you're going to see some Planeswalkers or a Planeswalker from Shards of Alara as well. But yeah, you know, a bit of variance there between the fairies decks. Okay, so like I said, we're going to have a look at Kithkins. And you know, a number of these we've seen before, so we might, when we drill down and go down various rabbit holes, we may not have to go quite so far because we've explored some of this, but we'll see how it pans out. So you can see we've got quite a number of 1-drops here. We've got a single copy of Burrenton Forge-Tender, so 1/1 for 1 with protection from red. Red, you sacrifice it, prevent all damage a red source of your choice would deal this turn. We've got 4 Figures of Destiny. It's red, white, 1/1. Comes into play. It comes into play as obviously Figure of Destiny, but then you can. There's this very much similar to sort of a level up type situation where by investing mana in here, you can make it something else. So, you know, red white hybrid, so red or white, it becomes a 2/2 Kithkins Spirit. 3, now again, this you have to pass through each one, so if it's a spirit it becomes 4/4 Kithkins Warrior, and if it's a warrior and you want to invest this much hybrid mana, it becomes an 8/8 Kithkins Spirit Warrior Avatar with flying and first strike. And all, you know, each time these extra creature subtypes get added on, so underneath it all, it's always a Kithkins. Got it. Goldmeadow Stalwart, which is a 2/2 for 1, but yeah, which is really good. But there's an additional cost to play. So if you can't reveal a Kithkins from your hand, you have to pay 3 in addition. If you do reveal a Kithkin, then yeah, comes out for 1. 4 Knight of Meadowgrains, 2 white for a 2/2, first strike and lifelink. We've got Wizened Cenn, another 2-drop, 2/2, and Kithkin creatures get +1/+1 that you control. So here's our first card from Shards, Ranger of Eos, 3 and a white, 3/2, human soldier. It's rare, and when it comes into play you may search your library for up to 2 creature cards with converted mana cost 1 or less, reveal them and put them into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library, which is really handy in this deck because you can see we've got 9 cards. Well, that's the case. And then we've got 4 Cloudgoat Rangers, 3 and 2 white, 3/3. And when that comes into play, you put 3 1/1 white Kithkin soldier creature tokens into play. And if you tap 3 untapped Kithkin you control, then it gives Cloudgoat Ranger +2/+0 and gains flying until end of turn. There's 4 Unmakes in here, instant speed, and they have 3 white-black hybrid mana, and they remove a target creature from the game. The land base, this is probably one of the simplest land base we've seen for a while now, because all these previous episodes I've done, land base has been pretty complicated. So we've got 17 planes, we've got 4 Rustic Clachan, so when it comes into play you can actually choose to reveal a Kithkin from your hand, but if you don't, it comes into play tapped, so if you do, then it's untapped. Tap, add white to your mana pool, and it has a reinforced 1 on it, so 1 and a white. You discard the card and go this card, and you put a 1/1 counter on a target creature. We've also got 4 Windbrisk Heights. These are from Lorwyn. So this rustic was from Morningside. The Windbrisk Heights from Lorwyn, they have hideaway on them. So when the land comes into play, it comes into play tapped, and you look at the top 4 cards of your library, remove 1 from the game face down, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library. Once it untaps, it taps for white mana, and for 1 and a tap, you can play the removed card without paying its mana cost if you attack with 3 or more creatures this turn. Planeswalker wise in the deck, main decked, we've got 1 Ajani Goldmane, 2 and 2 white, 4 loyalty, so +1 is you gain 2 life, -1 put 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn, so the counters stay there but the vigilance just lasts until end of turn. And the -6, you put a white avatar creature token into play with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to your life total. We've got 2 Elspeth Knight-Errants, so 2 and 2 white, 4 loyalty, +1 is to put a 1/1 white soldier creature token into play, so that won't benefit from the Wizened Cenn ability, unfortunately. And I don't think there's any way in the deck of changing those into Kithkin either. Yeah, I don't see it. +1 target creature gets +3/+3 and gains flying until end of turn. And then -8, the ultimate. For the rest of the game, artifacts, creatures, enchantments and lands you control are indestructible. We've also got 4 Spectral Processions in the deck. So this, what did they call that? Had a special name, didn't it? Was it 2 Brid Mana? So in this deck, it's not going to be a problem because all of your mana is white mana, so you won't end up paying extra. But this is useful in decks where you want to play a Spectral Procession. You can either play it in a deck with no white, just costs more, or in a multicolour deck. And if push comes to shove and you don't have enough white mana, you can always pay in another colour. Although again, it costs more to do that. So yeah, it can be paid with any 2 mana or with white. This card's converted mana cost is 6. Another interesting thing, again, I don't think in here anything scales off of mana cost specifically. I mean, not that you would be able to anyway, but obviously Ranger of Eos only goes after mana cost 1 or less, but I don't see anything else in here at the moment that scales off the CMC. But yeah, that's one thing you can do actually in the right deck. So it puts 3/1/1 white spirit creature tokens. It was flying into play. Again, you can't leverage any sort of Kithkin related cards. Again, this one. But they are 1/1 flyers. Okay, in our sideboard, so another 2 copies of Burrenton Forge-Tender, 2 copies of Knight of the White Orchid. This is from the new set, Shards of Alara. So 2 white, 2/2 with first strike. When it comes into play, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a Plains card, put it into play, then shuffle your library. And then we've got 2 Oblivion Rings. So these particular ones come from Alara, but as you may know, and if we do this, let's just see, we should see, yeah, they're also in Lorwyn, which is interesting, which is also still in standard. But just because we're at that period where Shards has been released, I wanted to show this artwork because the other artwork is quite different. I think in some ways I prefer the other artwork. It's going to change over for me. Oh, there we go. Yep. Would have actually selected the right one, so that's what that looks like. Anyway, we've got that one. So. Stillmoon Cavalier, so 1 and then white black hybrid. Interesting in that, you know, this is from Eventide. It's not so, you know, in some ways it doesn't look dissimilar to the Kithkin, but you'll notice with the Stillmoon Cavalier, it's all just till end of turn. Has protection from white and from black. So first one gains flying until end of turn. We've got another one that gains first strike until end of turn. So you can stack these as well. And it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It's a 2/1 when it comes out. We've got 1 Ajani Goldmane, which is another copy because that was in the main deck as well. We've got 1 Wilt-Leaf Liege. Again, because this is hybrid matter, it doesn't matter that we don't have any green mana sources. But we're only going to get the buff here on our white creatures, +1/+1. It's a 4/4 for 4. And if a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this particular card, put it into play instead of putting it into your graveyard. Just one of those. And then 3 Reveillarks in the deck. So 4 and a white, 4/3 with flying. And when it leaves play, return up to 2 target creature cards of power 2 or less from your graveyard to play. And it's got Evoke for 5 and a white. And that's what the curve looks like. So it's, you know, it's a flatter curve than maybe we're used to seeing. And it's sort of doing this thing where it's sort of going down, isn't it? So it starts off where most of our stuff, well, not compared to, not most of our stuff because it is flat, but you know, we've got 9 copies of 1-drops in the main deck. Then, was it 8 2-drops, down to 3, down to 4 for our 3-drops, back up and then down again. There's our artwork from Shards of Alara. I do like this artwork. These are interesting. I think Shards of Alara block is one of the few Magic the Gathering novels I've actually read. The one that goes with it. novel for Shards. The other one I think I read was the Mirrodin one. Okay, Windbrisk Heights. So it has Hideaway on it. We've looked at these before. It's part of that cycle. You can see a few of them got reprinted. Maybe we haven't looked at them before. Yep, so from Lorwyn. White, blue, black, red, green. And you can see all of these, you know, you look at the top 4 cards of your library, remove one from the game. That could be any card. It's not like type specific. Once they untap, they all generate mana of their specific colour. But the trigger, if you like, or the criteria for playing that removed card, in addition to the whatever you've got to pay for it, which I think is all just a single colour of the appropriate mana, and then tapping it. It is lost, different between each one. So the white one, if you attack with 3 or more creatures. The blue one, if a library has 20 or fewer cards in it. The black one, if each player has no cards in hand. The red one, if an opponent was dealt 7 or more damage this turn. And the green one, if creatures you control have total power 10 or greater. So obviously you would put this in deck where those scenarios are, reasonably easy to achieve and can be utilised. Nice artwork on here, actually. I don't think if there's anything else I really need to add on this. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, this is the one I think I've tended to see a lot of in decks and I think there's some pre-cons within. But obviously, again, it's going to be specifically where you've built the deck to leverage this, so you can be, getting those hideaway cards out. The other interesting thing is with this is, of course, you can imagine in a deck where, or in a format where it would be possible to play some form of bounce land which is able to bounce these, because some bounce lands care specifically about certain types of land. But yeah, where you could bounce this back to your hand, you can, re-hide away. So that's handy. Yep, utility land, free cast another. Interesting tag. Yep, so we've actually looked at that quite a bit already. We've looked at least, all sorts of slicing and dicing there in previous episodes. So let's just see what else. And utility land is something else. There's been loads of utility lands in Magic's history. Way back. And I think, again, something I've spoken about lots and lots of times before is there are utility lands there that actually, don't generate any mana. Although I'm just looking here to see, are there any listed? Interesting, these all do seem to generate mana of some description, funnily enough. What does it give us this definition? It doesn't really. I wonder if the, without going through them all, I mean, some of these are, you know, flip lands. I wonder if in here the definition of a utility land is one that both generates mana and does something else, because there is another, I think there is another tag in here actually thinking about it, which just applies purely to lands that don't generate mana. Right. Rustic Clachan. So, oh yeah, these ones. What's that? Oh, okay. So flip one. Again, gives 1/1 counters. And yeah. We've had a look at these on previous episodes, and if you remember, it was interesting because we have the two colour ones, which is the ones we've looked at. This is the first time we've looked at this. So what happened was we had this cycle of lands which were, so red, white one, black, red, black, green, blue, black, and then white, white, blue. So it in some ways is a little bit strange in that these, so red, white, you know, it's one of those things where if you look at the back of a Magic the Gathering card, you can sort of see what ones are enemies and allied, based on whether they're side by side on the colour pie. And red white isn't side by side because the allieds are green and white and blue. But black red is allied. So you've got this weird cycle where you've got so enemy 2 colour, allied 2 colour, enemy, this is allied, and this is allied for that first Lorwyn Black block. Then we get to Morningtide, so the second one of the Lorwyn block, and it does it completely differently, or there's just basically one here which does green and then white, so a tricolour one. We've got this which is specifically mana of any colour for elementals, so great in your elemental deck. I think I might have that in an elemental deck actually, maybe, I'm not sure, thinking about it, but yeah. So, and then this one which is specifically for Kithkins cards, so interesting sort of hodgepodge of lands in that particular set alongside all the filter lands and everything else. Interesting at this point, we may be, well, no, maybe I won't talk about this, but you know, like there was loads of interesting stuff kicking around in the next block. You know, this Shards of Alara block. You know, the next block on from the Lorwyn sort of Shadowmoor, two mini blocks. and you know there was stuff in there for sorting out 3-colour stuff. So that's going to be interesting as we see more of those cards filter into tournament play. So Ajani Goldmane. What can we learn about Ajani and associated things? So yeah, part of the so-called Lorwyn 5. Those strange planeswalkers that look almost out of place in Lorwyn block because they were originally intended for the previous set when they were doing all the time future shifted shenanigans, stuff like that. So you can see the abilities of, there's loads of different things here: vigilance, life gain, unique tokens, plus 1/1 tokens, power boost to all, but a white avatar creature with this creature's power and toughness. Okay. And then similar to Ajani Steadfast, you can see that similar sort of boosts and buffs and things. And you can see the Lorwyn 5 has been reprinted a number of times over Magic's history, but I know we've seen quite a few of these over the weeks, but anybody that's just sort of tuned in just for this episode and hasn't watched any of the other series just prior to this, then yeah, there you go. Yeah, notice that what they employed here, where the artwork extends out above and you can see it faintly below. And this was something else, you know, you saw in, when we get into sort of Eldrazi's, stuff like that. Okay, Burrenton Forge-Tender. Yeah, we've seen loads of this martyr stuff, yeah, where a creature will sacrifice themselves for a benefit. There's evasion on here, and the reason behind that is, you know, it can evade red because it has protection from red, so that's why that is. And we've got damage prevention, which is a pretty widespread thing. And of course that goes back way back historically. You know, there's always been certain protection spells in Magic's history. I suppose historically, you know, the cycles, the circle of protection type things and variations on a theme were often in white. But then you get other things, you know, these damage prevention, you know, there's fog effects in green and that sort of stuff. But over time, you know, the ability to nerf a particular source of, you know, a particular colour of mana, so is what I'm trying to say, you know, extends across all sorts of cards in all sorts of different colours. But I tend to associate, you know, this sort of damage prevention type thing a lot with, you know, white and green, I suppose. So Elspeth gives flying. You get protection of creatures, synergies with artifacts because of this. Similar to Archangel Elspeth, that's a later card. Similar, yeah, same casting cost. Gives indestructible, repeatable token generator, and synergy enchantment. I'll include a link to any sort of relevant set musings that I've done, so that people can sort of look and see, yeah, what other planeswalkers were in Shards of Alara, and go down that particular rabbit hole if they're curious. If we bring it up here and just look at a few things. So I think what would be interesting actually with this, so if we do type Planeswalker and what we can do is, what I'm curious about is colour white and where it's monocolour. Did I put... Yeah, I knew I had a feeling I might... look at me. There we go. Can't do that. My spelling this morning is awful. That's better. Okay. Dear me. My keyboard skills this morning are very wobbly. So yeah, 35 white, mono white planeswalkers. And you can see on a timeline here, here's Ajani, which is in this deck. Here's Elspeth. And then the next planeswalker in white, mono planeswalker, was Gideon. Then we're back to Elspeth. Then Ajani, then Gideon, then Elspeth, then Ajani. Then Nahiri, which was from the Commander product. Then this one, which is Kithkins, which is Gideon. From, what would this be? Magic Origins. Gideon again, Gideon again, Gideon again. Ajani, more Gideon. Teo, someone called the Wanderer. And if you remember these, so these ones, these are these interesting uncommon planeswalkers in white. Oh, they're in other colours as well, but yeah, there's a whole slew of them in War of the Spark, where they just have one ability. You can't, in and of itself, through the card, add. You can't tick the token, the loyalty counters up. I mean, obviously, there might be other ways if you design your deck to do that. But yeah, as they exist in and of themselves, they just have this static ability. So they behave a little bit like, say, an enchantment or an artifact. But then you can deplete their loyalty and get this other ability. So that's interesting. Gideon against Sira, more Ajani, more Elspeth. And then we've got Basri, Mila Crafty Companion. So the white-red one here, because it flips, so that's why that came up. Grandmaster of Flowers. Looks like that's online, yeah. I think, yeah, Horizons, that would be. Some stuff in Neon Destiny. There's another Elspeth. The most recent one is Ajani, which is actually a flip card, which goes into a red-white one. So yeah, we've seen quite a number of Elspeths, quite a number of Ajanis over the years. Some of these, you know, are going to be part of a cycle. This one, it wasn't specifically, you know, a whole cycle in this particular set. And in terms of being reprinted, I mean, it was reprinted in Modern Masters. And if we look at the Modern Masters one, there's no mention here of it being part of a cycle either, so it hasn't been tagged up as such. There's Ranger of Eos. So yeah, this is from the new set of this time. Oh look, it's a doggo. Creature type erratum. So that must have got changed then. We'll have a look at that. Yeah, Tutor CMC, Tutor to Hand. It's an invitational card, actually. So yeah, don't know off the top of my head who that was actually. Let me just have a quick look up while I'm sitting here. Yeah, so where are we? Tutor to Hand, invitational card. Let's look at some Tutor to CMC while I'm doing this off screen. So actually, let's read it down. I'm glad I did this actually, because you can see we've had some interesting cards we've looked at in the past, and this isn't the rabbit hole we've been down. Okay, there we go. So, this is really interesting. Citronal Flute. And we've got these rebels, which each, they had different casting costs that they could seek out. And then you had the mercenaries around the same, all the same time, Acadian masks. And then we had these, more rebels, more mercenaries. And then really from that point onwards, you just get odd things here and there, like you've got Trinket Mage, for instance, which turned up in, I think, quite a few interesting tournament decks when it was, kicking around. And that was reprinted, I think, in a core set a bit later and turned up, I think, there was a blue, I think it was like an Artifacts and Illusions deck, which it cropped up in, which they released as one of, I remember when they first started doing tournament decks. I don't know if anybody remembers those, the period they did those for a while, and they were for F&M mainly at that point. So the Ranger of Eos invitational card was actually Antoine Rouel's prize card for winning 2006 Magic Invitational. So there we go. Then we got Dim Infiltrator. Yeah, so we got quite a few scattered throughout Magic, and there's probably some sets beyond where we saw quite a densely packed number around the time when it was used specifically for rebels and mercenaries. But I'm curious if there's been any other really sort of surge in a set. I mean, it looks like, well, no, see, nothing too major really, is there? I mean, there's these all online cards which are introduced for various reasons. As you can see, there's quite a number of those here actually that have come in. Good old Figure of Destiny, and we looked at this quite a bit a previous week, and yeah, what's called a pseudo leveler. So it took me three attempts, and then I worked out where levelers finally cropped up, because my brain was a bit fuzzy. Yeah, so this sort of predates levelers. And at this point, there's into this category, and they've done ones later on in Magic's history, but you can see there's only 7 in the category of pseudo levelers, because then we went on to actual levelers. I wonder if this is actually just a tag? No, it's not, funnily enough. And if we go into the set, yeah, Rise of Eldrazi. So that's when we finally get actual levelers. What's it in? Oh, it is a leveler. Is that spelled? Oh, strange. Maybe I did something wrong there. Yeah, so there's actual 25 actual levelers. And if you look at those, see if it was ever used later than this. I don't think it was. No. Well, okay. Modern Horizons. This is one of them. That's funny. So of the actual, you know, which ultimately went on to be levelers, Rise of Eldrazi, the ones I tend to remember most, I think, and there's no particular. Well, one, there is a particular reason, but I remember this and Brimstone Mage for some reason. But Jorga Tree Speaker, just because that was definitely cropping up in a few decks. As you can see here, you know, once it gets in this region, it's generating 2 green. If you can get it up here, then you've got elves have double green added to them. And you have this green card as well, which is spitting out, or can spit out, elephant tokens. If I actually look at the full thing, what's the most expensive full-on leveler? Lighthouse Chronologist. Well, it takes quite a while to get up to there. Although, yeah, because the other way you can fiddle with this and get things a lot faster, of course, it's counters. So once we had Proliferate come in, then yeah, you can, assuming you can do that. I don't know if there's any reason why you wouldn't be able to. Transcendent Master, Hex Drinker, Student of Warfare, there's Jorga. Coral Helm Commander, yeah, that was the other one. Goldraz Assassin. Not sure how many of these were in the Rise of the Eldrazi intro decks either. I'll have to dig some out at some point when I do my Saturday sort of retro flip through of decks, because there's quite a number of interesting decks that I've sort of, you know, haven't looked at probably since I unboxed them. And you know, on Saturday, that's the sort of thing I tend to do on with the videos. Spectral Procession, which we've looked at before. Yeah, this cycle of 2-grid mana spells. Imaginary Friends. And a unique mana cost. I wonder what falls into that category. Clearly we have been here before, so I've just clearly forgotten. Oh. I suppose, yeah, like unique for the time. I imagine, yeah, I wasn't playing around at the time of Legends, but I imagine this must have been pretty awesome. Like, I imagine people opening packs of legends and just seeing these. It must have really been quite a interesting experience. And I have a few of these, but mainly Chronicles versions. I'm trying to remember if I have a copy of this. Again, you know, it's an interesting little collection, I suppose, but a lot of these are quite hard to find. I mean, some, you know, if you look at the prices, you know, I suppose if you can manage to find a reprint, the Chronicles ones are going to be the same art if they indeed get reprinted. A few of these didn't, like not all the legendaries in Legends got reprinted in Chronicles. Like for instance, this didn't. And neither did this, which is quite sad because I like the idea of this. So when into the battlefield, create X11 Sand Warrior creature tokens that are red, green and white at the beginning of your next upkeep, where X is the number of lands you control at that time. Wow. Leaves the petrified, exile all the Sand Warriors. It's just amusing. I mean, I don't know how powerful that is, because I mean, it's a timing thing, isn't it? Because if you try and bounce it, you lose your existing Sand Warriors and just replace them with others. Although I suppose, you know, if you've got stuff triggering off ETBs, regardless of what it is, then yeah, there's ways you can play around with this. Oh, there you go. If you want an interesting old school blue-white, so what's that? 3 white, blue. I notice as well on the original cards, you sometimes saw this like it's around the other way. Yeah, with Rampage 1, whenever this creature becomes blocked, gets a +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature blocking it on their first. I suppose it's a talking point, isn't it? Lord Magnus. Oh, good old Nicol Bolas. Yeah, I have the Chronicles versions. I mean, they're ticking up a little bit. There's the one from Masters. It was also time shifted as well. With the original artwork on it. But they didn't time shift all of them, did they? Which is interesting. All of these you can get in Chronicles though. And that was, yeah, obviously they reprinted these in online when they released that Masters thing. Okay, Goldmeadow Stalwart. So, Tribal Revealer, which we have looked at in some episode. Colour. Okay, yeah, so all of these, you reveal them, or you reveal a card of a certain type in order to get the actual casting cost. If not, then you pay 3. So either you reveal a card or you pay 3 as an additional cost on top. And so this has card draw in it, this has fear, this one has death touch, but the other two don't have anything else. Apart from the fact, you know, that getting a 2/2 out on turn 1 or a 2/1 on turn 1, or is advantageous. See, this is still a 2/2 for 2, but it does have fear on it. And this is a 2-1 for 2, but it does have card draw. Good old Unmake. Yes, most definitely creature removal, and it exiles. And there's a number of cards that do that. If we look at this and just see where the first card that actually sort of exiled creatures. See, it's Swords to Plowshares. Then we get Oubliette. So, not the first time, but I think, you know, it's one of those ones which certainly does stick in my head. You can see a lot of the other ones that do it, or are tagged as being able to do it, have certain conditions on them, or might be specific to certain things. Some, like, you know, crib swap's interesting because you get the controller of the creature that you're exiling gets this shapeshifter creature. If you remember, you know, the original Swords to Plowshares, the controller gets to gain life. But you can see other ones, you know, have various conditions, caveats, additional, you know, rewards, I suppose, or something that the person whose creature you're removing, the player's creature you're removing, you know, gets. And of course we get things like Path to Exile, where the controller gets the basic land, and then Journey to Nowhere, where the controller gets nothing. So 147 for that. Journey to Nowhere. Enters the battlefield, exile target creature. When Journey to Nowhere leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to the owner's hand, to its owner's control. So if you can blow up the Journey to Nowhere, then it comes back. Path to Exile. So you're removing a creature from the game. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card. Put that card into play tap. But you can see these are instant, so instant speed, and they're gone. Unless there's some way in which, you know, either this can be countered, or there's a way in which a card that might be able to interact with the exile zone. But yeah, it's not like, so that's why. So if you look at the price of this, it's 157. Now, one of these got super expensive before they started reprinting it. And you get things like Owner's Judgment, but that's like 4 and a white, sorcery speed. And there's some, trying to remember specifically, you know, certain creatures. Oh, there we go. Banish a Priest, that was what I was trying to think of. So yeah, interesting when it's stapled to a creature. It's Banishing Light. So, you know, if you look, there's going to be comparisons to Oblivion Ring, which we're going to see in a moment. So Knight of Meadowgrain from Lorwyn. First strike, lifelink, 2/2 for 2. Double white, but you're playing a mono white deck anyway, so. French vanilla, because all of these abilities are keyworded. It's got life gain on it. Better than Ajani's Sunstriker, so one of these namesake cards, which normally, you know, will feature some sort of ability that, you know, Ajani's known to do. So you get these, particularly these sort of planeswalker, I mean, namesake cards occur with other things, but yeah, often when they're a namesake card for Planeswalker, they will replicate at least one of the Planeswalker abilities. Shrine Keeper, it's just a 2/2 for 2. So this is obviously better than that. It's better than Ajani's because it just does the life link, but not the first strike. I always remember, you know, like double strike in combination with first strike always used to be a big thing. Other Kithkins controllers, other you control. And there was a cycle of these. And we've seen these before, and you can see if we were to do this again, as we've done previously, they are just purely in that set, but there's multiples just because of the way that certain creatures were featured. So we've got, you know, Kithkins in white, in blue we've got merfolk and fairies, in black we've got goblins, in red we had elementals and giants, and in green we had elves and tree folk. And that was all just within that one set within Lorwyn. So yeah. Wilt-Leaf Liege, which was from Shadowmoor, so hopefully we'll see an interesting cycle here. Yeah, these lieges. So 10 of these, because they covered all the colour combinations. So white blue, blue black, black red, red green, green white, white black, blue red, black green, red white, green blue. And all of them had this ability on them where they would buff each of the two colours or together, if you were lucky enough to have creatures where it was in a case that they were both colours. And then on themselves they had something, so this one's got flash, this has got flying, this one has becomes a target spell or ability and opponent controls, that player loses 4 life, trample on that one. This one, it'll put itself into play if it's discarded, if an opponent causes you to discard it, not you. This is interesting. So it had these abilities on it where it monitored what sort of spells you were playing as well. So it's creatures and spells, and then you get extra stuff. This one just had some sort of hybrid activation here as well. Beyond these, it's tokens. Again, something monitoring you playing spells, and then this one untapping and untapping stuff. Knight of the White Orchid. So you got this, I suppose, balancing effect with this. So when it comes into play, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a plains card, put it into play, then shuffle the library. So yeah, excellent in this deck. What's interesting, if we look back, we're now into sideboard territory. So yeah, both of these are in the sideboard. Catch up, refunds, interesting. Players who have less get more. Okay, cool. Land tax, yep. Tithe. I suppose it is a little bit different from, say, balance. I've got this refund here. Immediately get mana or untapped lands back. Okay. And that's been a thing as well. Oh, good old twiddle. Right, yeah, we've seen lots of twiddling in our deck musings and various other things. Better than Shrine Keeper, which is just a 2/2 for 2. Tutor land for battlefield, which is, you know, a number of cards where that's the case. Both land does it and other things. And specifically stuff that tutors planes. There we go. So yeah, these acted as tutors. They did come into play tap. Then we've got ties. Gift of Estates. More dual lands. Things like Eternal Dragon. Farseek can do playing, specifically mentions it. You've also got things like, you know, plane cycling fall into that category. Then we've got Cartographer. Pretty cool. Now, as opposed to, you know, I did mention balance. Let's just look at balance to see what's going on there. Yeah, so this, yeah, not so each player chooses a number of lands he or she controls equal to the number of lands controlled. There's a fewest and discards the rest. So yeah, done differently. Okay. Oblivion Ring. So yeah, this is an enchantment. It'll banish a non-land. When it goes into battlefield, exile another target non-land permanent. So it's not creatures, it's non-land permanents actually. Similar to Banishing Light. And then we've got reference by Journey to Oblivion. So these are all the cards that have the capacity to banish a non-land. And that started, according to this, with Oblivion Ring, and this is the original artwork. And we've seen it on and off. We've got Detention Sphere. I don't know if anybody remembers this. If you were playing around at the time of Return to Ravnica, I certainly remember that myself. And then we got things like Cast Out and so on. And then, you know, if you were to compare that to, where are we? I'll find it now. Yeah, so removal creature exile, which is what we looked at earlier, and you know, specifically just the mono white stuff. As a sort of comparison. Plowshares, as we mentioned. But yeah, there's Journey to Nowhere. So just does creatures. So Oblivion's 2 and a white, but does non-land permanents. And then we've got Reveillark, which again has been cropping up in numerous decks, particularly decks that are sort of built around it. So 4/3 for 4 and a white with flying. When it leaves play, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to play. So 5 and a white. And again, this is another sideboard card. So, you know, very useful in certain matchups. And you know, we've looked at reanimation quite a bit over this series. It's a portmanteau card, a combination of 2 words, which is something that you do see. And the first time we saw it in Magic would be mass printing. Oh, brainstorm, yeah. Millikin, Flassify, Helldozer, so on. There's Reveillark, Metallurgian, Lightning. It's one of my favourite cards in Magic. Both a shock and a discard together. I wonder if it's going to list. Yeah, we've gone off a bit of a side tangent here. Yeah, discard and burn. Cool. Oh, what else do I want to add here? Probably not much. Let's just go back a step. All right. Anything else? Okay, this leaves battlefield trigger self. Where are we? Not something that I've looked at, so yeah, it was interesting to see these sort of, you know, leaving the battlefield trigger things. Yeah, we see a lot of enters the battlefield, but in terms of leaving the battlefield, and Stillmoon Cavalier, another sideboard card. I did get a copy of this for some reason and I can't remember why. I think when I was sort of running it, or I was getting to the end of my no hand, no land, did I? Oh, I'm thinking of something else maybe, I don't know. There was some reason why I had copies of this, and I just don't remember why. There may have been a white-black deck I was experimenting with and thought that it might be quite good in that. It's a possibility. And we've got a whole load of cards here where, you know, one way or another they're similar to. There was a bit of a thing, I suppose. There is a thing in Magic that goes back quite a way, and you can see there's the sort of mirrored cards here in white where you had a particular creature and then there were these abilities that you could do, like First Strike and +1/+0, those sort of things. But you could do both of them if you wanted to. You can see this one does have the benefit of actually having 3 rather than just 2, and it does have flying as well. And the great thing with this is because it's all hybrid mana, this will work in a, you know, either in a mono white deck, a mono black deck, or any deck actually where either of those colours are present. You don't have to have both. You can, but you don't have to. So yeah, it's pretty flexible in that respect. And then finally, oh, just an additional, I must have included this twice by accident. So yeah, there's Ajani again, and we were looking at the Planeswalkers earlier. So a pretty interesting deck. I mean, you know, I suppose it did well to get, what was it, in the top 4 in a field which was essentially all fairies. I mean, just look at them all. I don't know in terms of the, you know, all the decks overall. I mean, this is just the top 8 and those that were undefeated on day 1 of the standard tournament. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. It managed to get in there. I should track down and see if I can find any online videos on YouTube of the the tournament, and if I do, I'll try and remember to include them in the descriptions of this video. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future video.